Hello, I'm meteorologist Ted Keller. Here's today's edition of Heads Up Weather. As you know, we have a big snowstorm coming our way, and the big question always is how much snow will fall. And of course, that's always a matter of where you are in the Ozarks, which round of snow are you talking about. And even if I say it's going to snow X number of inches in Springfield, well, that could vary several inches between the north side of the town and the south side of the town. So, having this as a target is kind of interesting. That's why I much more, prefer to talk about generalities and where the heavier snow bands will be. And I will attempt to give an estimate for Springfield, of course. But let's just get on here and take a look at the overview, see what's happening now, and look at all the model data, and then see what we can expect over the next 2 days. Visible satellite loop on this Friday afternoon shows, just by looking at it real quick, you can see there's some trouble brewing here. We have a circulation in the upper atmosphere right here, and we already see lots of moisture flowing in. So there's moisture coming from the Gulf and a little bit from the Pacific coming in like this too. It's not quite an atmospheric river because it's not a direct flow. But there is contribution from both sources in this particular scenario. So let's take a look at the upper level features. And yes, we do have that low southwest of Los Angeles. And you have this flow here, which features air spreading out a lot. That's going to encourage rising air, and this part of this system is moving this way. But there are two parts to the system. There's a shorter wave, and then there's this larger system. So there's actually two waves of snow. I was alluding to this yesterday on the Heads Up video, and really getting the snow total right is a cumulative effect. So you're looking at total storm accumulation, which I'm pretty sure everyone is posting. It's not just the Saturday part of it, but the Saturday night and Sunday part of it too. So it's interesting. But there's plenty of Arctic air in supply here, that's for sure, with temperatures very cold. Let's take a look at some snapshots here from about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Here's the radar, and lo and behold, there is some snow showing up here. Although these echoes here are not really producing anything on the ground as far as I'm aware, but if we can check the surface observations that go with that, we do see that there is some light snow being reported northwest of Wichita. That's the two blue snowflake-looking things right there. Temperature a lonely 1 degrees up there. I'm not sure what town that is. Hutchinson? No, it's Hays, Kansas. And notice that temperatures down here in Oklahoma City are just below freezing. No precipitation showing up yet, but it will start to mount and grow. As a matter of fact, one look at this, this is the way I think it might look. At least one of the models thinks it might look tonight at 9 p.m. When you can just see some light snow just barely infringing upon northwest Arkansas and getting into western Missouri. But I would discount that lighter color as almost not hitting the ground. And in fact, this first wave is going to be crippled a little bit, as most of the first waves of snowstorms like this are, by drier air. So in other words, you're wasting snow potential by this part of the storm just kind of priming the pump, so to speak, priming the lower atmosphere, raising its humidity and allowing snow to fall without just disappearing before it gets to the ground. So, but you can also see by this that the heavier echoes are certainly down here, and that this is like a secondary batch here. And it's very possible, and I think almost probable, that Springfield, Joplin, this area here, will fall in between these two. So what I'm saying is that the first round might underperform a little bit. The second round is, I think, always been the stronger of the two. And depending on where that sets up, it's going to have a huge impact on the snow totals. So the Weather Service just kind of compiles, all the Weather Service offices get together and they, kind of come up with an agreement. And it's not always a clean agreement. Sometimes you can see, look at these snow boundaries here, like east of Oklahoma City. It just unnaturally follows a county boundary. Why? Because it's a difference between one Weather Service office and the other. But it works pretty well. So if you look at the orange color, basically that is everywhere in the Ozarks. So that is an 8-inch forecast, slam dunk, according to the Weather Service. And then the foot of snow is very likely in northwest Arkansas and back here through Oklahoma City. Some people suggesting more than that in that core. And that's what the Weather Service has agreed upon here and compiled. This would be through Monday, but really it ends in most of this area except for areas out to the east of us, probably by about noon on Sunday. So let's take a look at various models. So here's the NAM model. Now this has always been the more aggressive one. This is the shorter range model that since it started showing up a day and a half ago, it has been aggressive. So it puts Springfield at 17 inches of snow. I don't see that. It puts northwest Arkansas at 20, almost 21 inches of snow. It's a little more probable down there, but I still think that's a little high for those areas. We can zoom in on all of these. So there's Springfield, 17 inches, Springdale, 21. Again, I think this is an aggressive model. It's not impossible, but I think it's the outlier. And then again, you can look Mountain Home, 17.5 inches. And then this little dark purple area here, I believe, is the 22-inch mark. So yeah, that model is something to contend with. Now, if you look at the GFS model, I stopped looking at the ensembles and just start looking at the deterministic models. In other words, each run. This is from 12Z or 6 a.m. this morning. This is total snow. So the GFS is much more conservative in Springfield, coming in at 7.2. I think largely that's two reasons. Again, number one, this first round of snow is going to kind of underperform. The second round of snow will be heavy, but won't get far enough north. So that's the interpretation of that. Take a look at Springfield, 7.2, Springdale over a foot, Mountain Home over a foot. Okay, so now we go to Arkansas, again, showing those same values over a foot, but the main band, you'll notice, is far displaced to the south on the GFS, down to Fort Smith areas south of I-40, basically. So that's a huge difference. So the placement of that is all critical. And also what's critical in this is how much of this will get mixed with sleet, because, and that's another model difference. Sleet doesn't accumulate as greatly as snow, generally speaking. It packs down. It's really little pellets. So it's not fluffy, in other words. So that's another consideration. Let's look at the Euro model. It has us at 9.4 in Springfield. We can zoom in on that. And you can see 9.4 in Springfield, 10 in Joplin, about the same down there in Springdale, and Mountain Home about 8. Again, we'll switch gears, and it'll show that the main band, again, is around I-40 in area south there in Arkansas. And then we can look at the blend model. So this is the Weather Service's kind of neat trick where they just take pretty much almost everything I just showed you and just kind of blend it together. And that's kind of where they got their 12-inch mark here, only they toned it down a bit, and they did not include this part of Missouri in their 12-inch forecast. Remember, all the Ozarks, according to the Weather Service, are in for at least 8 inches of snow. Will that happen? I think there's a really strong possibility of that happening, yes. If you want to take a look at a stamp of this. So this is how each of these models, these reddish ones, are those short-range models. And you'll notice that they really spike quite a bit. So there's two events. There's tonight and early on Saturday, and then it stops for a little bit. Saturday late in the afternoon, then it picks up again overnight into Sunday morning. That's this one right here. So you got one hump there and one right here. And you'll notice that, if you kind of strike an average with your eyeball here, that comes in around 10 inches. And these are the longer range models, and they have been lower. So there is the 6-inch mark right there, and those fail to really get much above that, really. Now, as far as timing, I think most people are pretty aware this is not an evening event. I did see some people canceling events this evening. I don't blame you. We've had snows come in 3 hours early and shut the city down. So I don't think that's going to happen here. But, if there was something going on tonight, I don't think there's anything going on of any consequence before midnight tonight. So this is the midnight chart. And even though it does show snow, again, you can almost discount those first colors of blue there because that's, again, the priming effect. This, if you're wondering, I had someone ask, what's the purple color mean? That is sleet. So it's the next thing down. Usually in this type of situation, it's a step ladder. Snow, sleet, freezing rain is this color right here, by the way. And I will not cover the ice storm down to the southeast in this particular video, but later on this evening, I will issue the weather to watch, and we'll focus in on that ice storm in the southeast. So anyway, that's midnight. So that's when the first flakes of snow will probably be visible across the Ozarks. And again, notice that you're probably always going to get your heaviest snow right along the sleet-snow transition, right in there. And then there's maybe some hints of that second band of snow right there, and Springfield maybe falling in between the two. That's 9 a.m. Saturday. And then by Saturday midnight, it takes a break, and then you'll notice another band of precipitation here. Now, this is where you put this is all important for getting your total snow, because I think this is going to be the main contributor in most areas, especially in Missouri. So that's midnight Saturday, and then this is going strong on Sunday. Although, again, the heaviest snow is almost always a couple of counties or 100 miles or so within the sleet area. So that, that I think is why northwest Arkansas in this area here, I think you can pretty much count on a foot of snow in that area with lesser amounts to the north. And as you know, this is a cold weather event as well. It's already cold. So the low temperature tomorrow morning, Saturday, will be 5 in Springfield, 4 in Clinton. And then the high temperature on Saturday will only get to 12 here in Springfield, only 8 in Kansas City, as an example of how cold this is. And then Sunday morning, we go to -5. Snowpack almost guarantees negative numbers everywhere on this map. And then on Sunday afternoon, we only get to 15 right here in Springfield. And then things begin to recover a little bit, only 8 on Monday morning, and a high of about 21 on Monday here in Springfield. These are all National Weather Service forecasts. And then the last thing, yes, this wind chill is a deal. So this is all the models contributing to this. So we have a pretty steady wind chill basically starting tomorrow morning and going through all the day to Sunday, staying somewhere between 0 and 10 below. And then briefly, Sunday evening and Monday morning, we have wind chills dropping down maybe as low as -20 to -25 here this is a Springfield chart. It applies to most of the Ozarks, though. So that's the latest update. If I see anything different at all, I'll have another one of these heads up on Saturday. Otherwise, if you're wanting maybe a slightly more updated information, watch around 6 or 7 tonight, and I'll have the weather to watch, which is the lower 48. But I certainly will be mentioning this storm. It's the only thing going on. So if you want another update today, you can look forward to that video as well. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next video.